All right, hey, this is Adam Dierig with AdvancedDimensions.com. I'm going to do a 3D Disto webinar on the new software that's just come out at the end of last year, beginning of this year, version 4. We came from version 3 and now we're in version 4, and there's some exciting, awesome things that have happened. And I'm going to kind of give you a rundown of the basic software, but then also some of the new features that make it a little bit better than what it was before. So as you can see on my screen, I have two different screens. One's basically just the webcam of the 3D Disto, and that'll be moving around kind of with the webinar, so you can see what the 3D Disto is seeing. And then I have the basic layout of the office that I'm in, just kind of give you an overview of what I'm going to be demoing right now. So we're kind of in this space that I'm hovering over with my mouse. You can see the red outline of the room that I'm in, and that red outline is going to be what I'm going to be capturing with the 3D Disto. This circle is where the 3D Disto is placed roughly in the room. This desk is where I am sitting, just to give you some perspective of what is going on. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of get into the software right now. Currently, I have the software turned off, just so I can show you guys what happens when you boot it up. So when you install the 3D Disto software, you're going to get two little icons on your desktop. As you see right at the top of this screen, I have them selected. One is the 3D Disto data shortcut. The other one is the 3D Disto software shortcut. I'm going to open up the data one just to show you. Basically what that is just a link to where the software is going to be exporting. If you're using a tablet, like a Windows tablet, that's where you're going to be copying and pasting all that information from there to wherever the end result is going to be. If you're using the tablet that comes with the Disto, that one you'd be exporting it right to the jump drive that comes with it. Now, let me just give you another overview. Sorry, I should have this up. Should have some pictures here. Products. I want to give you a picture of what's all I'm talking about too. Just so you know. So here's a scope of delivery picture. All right. Now, so we're talking about the 3D Disto. This is what you'd get in a delivery package. You got a hard case, you got a offset accessory, and I'll explain that when I start going through the webinar. You get the tablet that comes with it, a jump drive, a remote control, some target plates, all the accessories needed to charge both the 3D Disto and the tablet. Coming out later in the year, they're going to be actually doing away with this tablet, which is probably a good thing. But that's kind of coming down the pike. It's going to be something that they're going to suggest some good Windows tablets to purchase along with the 3D Disto, really because this is a very antiquated tablet. It's very slow. I suggest to all my customers to run over it with their truck and go out and buy a new tablet anyway. So that's kind of what we're talking about right now. And let me get into the software. So we got the data folder, and then we got the software. So I'm just going to double click on the software. This Windows thing pops up every time, and you can't see it in the webinar, but I'm just going to hit yes. It's going to run the software. I'm going to move it from the screen that it's on over to the other one so we can all see it. So basically when the 3D Disto opens up, the software opens up, it gives you three different options now. It used to be four, but now it's only three. I think it used to be four. Yeah. And this is to be doing away with the tablet. The third one was for the tablet feature. So you can connect to the 3D Disto via USB cable, which is what this line is, connecting the computer to the 3D, via Wi-Fi, Or if you want to just open up the software and you don't have the 3D necessarily on or connected, you can do that. That's good for if you wanted to export something and you didn't have the 3D Disto on. But right now I have the 3D Disto connected to my computer via USB cable, so I'm going to select that. Now, if you're running version 3 and you need to upgrade to version 4, you're going to go to Leica My World and you're going to download the software update from there. And then you're just going to run it on your computer. You don't have to uninstall anything. It'll just install over top of your existing version 3 software. All of the license codes and everything should all migrate over just fine. And that should be that. So the biggest thing that you can see when you first open the software is you see a little picture or a little icon of a 3D disto. What's exciting about this that did not happen in the version 3 software or 2 or 1 is they actually have incorporated 3 dimensions to this. So if I go down at this bottom, there's a whole bunch of options and I just selected the like orbit option and you can see the 3D Disto is kind of like floating in space because we haven't taken any points yet. But it's very cool to be able to get a visual. You don't necessarily need to export to CAD and then open it up and view it in CAD. You can actually get the 3D visual right in the software itself. So pretty amazing. There's no more, we used to have to like see the plan view and you have to elevate each wall. They've kind of done away with that, so it's pretty cool. But I'm going to get started like I usually do when I do these webinars, kind of just go over the basics of the outside perimeter, and then we'll get into like using the software and how that works. Over on the left side, you can see that there's 3 buttons here. One is basically like a file drop down. When you select it, these file options come up, and we'll go over those after I've gone around this. The other one is the disto button, which is where you would take the measurement. Last one here is the target when you want to view the view screen, and I'll click into that shortly. Up at the top, you can see this is kind of like a status. Every time you take a measurement, this changes, and this drop down here has other information of what has changed, and you'll see that being populated when I start taking dimensions. One big thing that kind of changed between the 2 different versions is this used to be like where you were, the mode of which you were in. So like if you were in room scan mode, which is the older version of what you would take all your measurements in, it would say room scan here. They've kind of done away with that room scan feature, and I'll show you that when I go over the details of the file drop down. So that's kind of just a status of where you're at. Home is to exit the measurement, save the measurement, or if you were in another feature, to go back to the measure feature. Down here, it gives you a couple of different options. They're all grayed out right now because we're not really taking any measurements, but this is for benchmarking if you wanted to take a reference height. This is for, used to be a toolkit option, and now it is, oh no, this is, sorry, excuse me, this is the automated scanning feature. Excuse me, and we'll show you that in action. This is if you wanted to change it so that you're not drawing a line between the points. This is for maneuvering back and forth between points, the undo and redo button that can only happen once. You can only undo once and you can only go forward once. If you undo, if you go back too far, you can't, jump ahead. This is check mark is what you would check when you're doing an automated scan. This is for if you want to measure area and volume of a room, you can do that with that feature. I'm going to go back actually. And then this is if you wanted to delete something. So if you had drawn a line and you want to delete it, you're going to click there. Down here is the navigation buttons. This basically changes from perspective view to parallel view. It's by default is in perspective. You can change that to parallel if you want. This button is to rotate the model, very similar to like a 3D orbit in AutoCAD. Basically anywhere where you click and hold the mouse, you can rotate the model around to get a visual. Pan, again, just like AutoCAD, it's going to keep you in one spot and kind of like move it back and forth. You can zoom the extent of the whole model. That's what this one. So if there was more geometry here, it would keep zooming out more, but right now we're only looking at the 3D disto. This is zoom if you wanted to basically zoom in and out. I'm holding the right mouse button down and just going forward and coming backward, and it's kind of real-time zoom. And this is if you wanted to zoom a window. Very helpful to be able to maneuver back and forth. Down here is almost like taken right from AutoCAD. Actually, I have a feeling it is taken right from AutoCAD. Leica just signed a partnership with Autodesk, and I think good things are going to happen from it. But this you can navigate top view, isometric, frontal view, front view, side views, left views, kind of getting all over the place. We'll keep it in that isometric view for right this minute. And now I'm going to get into a little bit of the viewfinder, and then we can start taking some, actually let me get into the file drop down, show you a little bit about that, some setup stuff, and then we'll get into taking measurements. So before there used to be an applications button, there still is, but there's only 3 applications here. There's a toolkit, there's a projector, and there's a location. There used to be one called room scan, which you would take all your measurements in, but they've converted that so that it's just automatically in that room scan mode, or the measurement mode, which is a better name for it because that's exactly what you're using for it. So the toolkit is basically something that you're going to select, and this little pop-up pretty much says it all. This information is in the toolkit will not be stored. It's only for your information. And from here you can take like a measurement at the ceiling and a measurement at the floor, and it'll tell you the height. You can take a measurement on the wall and enter that you want to go 12 inches over and 6 inches down, and the 3D disto will move 12 inches over and 6 inches down. You can measure, get reference heights, you can get more reference heights, so on and so forth. Honestly, I don't really use this so much. Because when you're using the 3D disto, the purpose of it is to store the points. It's nice to know that these functions are available. The thing I could only really think of using in the field are maybe the height one and the offset over and down or up and over or whatever. So that's basically the toolkit rundown. The other thing that they've kind of changed between versions is there used to be a 1 and 2 at the bottom here, and now there's just a scroll down and scroll up when there's more options available. Right now, it's not there because there's no more options available. Go back to the file drop down here. So the other applications we have are projector, which is kind of a webinar in itself. One of these days I'm going to sit down and do a webinar on it. But basically what it is if you want to, instead of capture the points, if you want to project points onto a vertical or horizontal plane, linear plane, you would do that with this feature. I tell some customers, if you're doing like wall paneling, it could be helpful. You could capture the 4 points of the wall, bring it into AutoCAD, add the anchor points that are required, upload it back into the software, and then have the 3D disto project those anchor points on the wall. It's a little easier said than done. I can explain it, and the theory of it is very well thought through. It just takes a couple more steps to get it to work right. So that is a possibility, and it's not going to project multiple points at the same time. It's going to project a single point at the time at each time you want to project. Lastly, there's a location. What's pretty powerful about the 3D disto as compared to others, even in the Leica family, is the ability to relocate and to secure your location. So I use this, if we go back to this PDF, if we have the 3D disto set up here, and we can only scan so much of this room from this location, with the relocate, what you can do is you can actually move the 3D disto to another spot, and relocate it to this spot, and then you can continue to take measurements within the same drawing file. Very powerful. I'll show you a little bit about that as we get into it. So you can secure your location, which is basically saving the device's location, and then once you've secured it, you move the device, and then you would relocate it. Also, once you've secured the location, if you're having any doubts about what's going on, you can check the location of the device by basically picking a point that you've secured and then just making sure that the 3D Disto is looking at that same point. So these are all pretty much standard. This was in version 3. It's still in version 4. We just lost that room scan, which is a good thing because now it makes a little bit more logical sense. Next one down on our list is the file manager. This is where you're going to be saving all of your files. I just upgraded from version 3 to version 4 on this computer, and all my files came in too. So if that's a question out there, you don't have to worry about it. This is also where you're going to go to export files, which I'll show you when I'm done with the webinar or when I'm done with the scan. There's a calculator which pops up if you don't have a Windows calculator. The device itself, this is where you're going to go to connect. If I wanted to change the connection from a USB to a Wi-Fi, I would do it here. If I wanted to disconnect the device, I would do it here, or vice versa from Wi-Fi to USB. The WLAN channel is something that you're going to use in the initial setup. Once you've set it up, you're probably not going to use it again. Occasionally, if maybe you're in the field, I was in New York City a couple weeks ago with this project, and I had a conflict of a lot of Wi-Fi devices available or channels available, and it'd be something where you might have to jump into this channel manager and just make sure that the 3D Disto is set up to the same channel. But that's kind of, again, a webinar all in itself. Just kind of know that that's there. And if you have any issues or problems, you give us a call. We can help you out. Tilt sensor. This is going to be the unit's tilt sensor. Basically, it's unsensitive by default. I would suggest for the best accuracy, sensitive is what you're going to want. If for some reason the disto is bumped, jostled, moved, the floor shakes, something like that, it's going to tell you that the disto has moved and it wants to, recalibrate itself. That's what the sensitive is about. If you just have it on, it won't be as sensitive, or you can turn it off completely, which is not suggested because then your accuracy is kind of like thrown out the window. Theft protection is if you wanted to put like a code on it where you needed that code to open up the software. It's not going to protect your 3D Disto from getting stolen in the job site. So I would still keep it under, on in your vision or whatever. Calibration is kind of if you wanted to go through and calibrate the crosshairs, if you feel like the crosshairs aren't, lining up with the laser point. By default, this is all set up at the factory. I would suggest if you are even thinking about calibrating something like that to give us a call and we can either walk you through it or see if it's really an issue. There's also, you can calibrate the base benchmarks, levels, all that kind of stuff. To be honest with you, I find that if you just turn the unit off and turn it back on again, it's going to recalibrate itself. It's one of those kind of things. I usually don't mess with this area. I usually just turn the machine off, turn it back on again if I need to. Anytime you're in a specific feature, you just hit the home button and you'll go back to the measurement mode. Lastly, in the device area, there's software, and this is where you're going to see if there's an update, if there's a version, what version you're in, which is this is the most current version, and also where you're going to enter in the license codes, which there's still 4 license codes that you got to enter. So it's just kind of something that you got to do. Last thing on this drop-down menu is the settings. Bunch of different settings here. I'm going to go through quick thoughts on each one of them just so you kind of have an idea what they can do, and then I'll get into taking the measurements. So there's a snap radius feature, which by default I have it set, or by default it's at 2. You can set it to 0. What it means is if you're taking measurements around the room, and say you come back down to the original start point, if you take a measurement anywhere within a 2-inch radius of the original start point, the 3D Disto software is going to say, would you like to snap to the old, or would you like to go with a new point? By default, it's set to 2. I have previously had it set to 0 because I feel like every point that you take should be unique. But I was using that in the field at 2 inches, and it does give you the option to either snap to the old or to make a new point. And with that option, it's kind of nice sometimes to be able to snap to the old one. So I'm going to actually leave it at the default. And you can set it up to even bigger or smaller, but we'll just leave it at the default. The assistant is something that is on by default. And what it is basically when you select something, it's going to give you like a step-by-step of how to do it. And I'll bring that to your attention when we get into using the software. But after you've done it about 20 or 40 or 60 or 100 times, you don't really care that the assistant's popping up. It's kind of annoying. So you can turn it off, which is a very good feature. Units, this is where you're going to set up your slope units in percentages, inches, feet, degrees, minutes, seconds. Distance, you can set that up. I have it set up for inches. Angles, decimal separators, and horizontal. One important thing to note about distance, and I'm going to do another webinar about this. If you have it set up for this and you export it to AutoCAD, just know that it's going to export the units. So if you're looking for things in inches, set your units for inches. If you're looking for your information in feet, set it for feet or yards or so on and so forth. This is actually inches and feet. This is just decimal feet. And why I'm saying that is when you export your CAD file, it's only exporting the units, not exporting the unit of measurement, but the units of what you've taken. So if you take something that's 12 feet and you're looking for 12 feet, and you've done it in inches, it's going to tell you it's 144 units, which is how many inches are in a feet. Excuse me. I'm just getting over a cold, so if I have to take a break, it's because I'm taking a sip of water. So I'm going to have it set up for 30 seconds by default. Welcome text is pretty awesome. When you open up the screen, you can have it say, "Hello, Adam, how are you doing?" Other than that, I don't really find the feature of this to be very useful at all. But if you want it to be personalized, you can totally do that. On-screen keyboard is set up for off by default. You can have it turn on. If you're using a tablet, that is kind of self-explanatory, but right now I'm using my desktop, so I'm going to leave it off. Date and time, self-explanatory. Language, self-explanatory. There's lots of different language options here. Basically, you just got to pick them. Set up English by default. Import-export is kind of like how the files set up. I really haven't found too much of a difference here. One thing that I will say with this, I'm going to go back to that so you can see what just happened. So if we go to settings, import, export, if you go to coordinates, used to be in version 3 by default, this was set up to some crazy numbers, 13,000 inches, 20,000 inches, blah, blah, blah. But what it is really it's the 0, 0, 0 point of your drawing. So the first measurements that you take are close to that 0, 0 point. So I have it set up by default to 0, 0, 0. You can go in here and set this up to whatever you want. If you want those start point to be 100, 100, 100, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, whatever you want, 2,000, 1,000, 3,000, who knows. You can change those here. I'm not going to change them. Settings, all right, so that's import, export, and then you can reset everything to default. So now that we've kind of gone through that, let's get into taking some measurements so I don't put you all to sleep. So I want to start getting into the measurement mode. By default, this is set up to be drawing a line between each point, which is the way I want it to set up. I'll show you turning that off after we get into it. And now we're looking through the view screen. So another plus that they've done with this software update is the mobility of the speed in which the 3D Disto software response is actually a lot faster. You can move this around a lot faster than you could with version 3. It's kind of nice because there were some times when with version 3 you wanted it to go just a little bit faster to keep up with your mind, and now it can kind of keep up with it. So by default, these are pretty much the same as what it was before. Kind of nice though, it doesn't have the 1-2 thing, so you can use your scroll wheel if you're using a mouse to move up and down. Right now, these are all the options that are available. And we can zoom in like we did last time, up to 8 times. You can change the brightness if you want to make it just a little bit brighter. You can do that. I'm going to leave it actually at that. You can have it set up. By default, it's turned off. I'm still curious why they do it, but when you're taking points, you can either see the points that you've taken or not see the points, only kind of see one point at a time. I'm going to turn it on so that I will see the previous points. This little guy with the arrow is for when you're using the offset, which is this guy. And that's for like if you wanted to get a point, but you couldn't see the point, but you could get these 2 points. You could do it that way, and I will show you that as we're moving through. You can use the one that's given, or you can actually make your own, or you can just do a single point, and then it assumes plumb or assumes vertical, or sorry, horizontal. This gives us the option to take a picture. So anytime you click that, it'll take a picture and let you know. This gives you the option to invert the colors. Not really found too much of use for it. It does give you a little bit of a line differentiation between the two, but not the greatest. This guy is going to give us, if we want to rotate 90 degrees one way, so that'll automatically rotate at 90 degrees, and other angles, or you can go plumb, go horizontal, or go back to where we were before. Kind of a quicker way to navigate if you needed to. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through, bring this PDF back up. I'm going to go through and just kind of like take a quick floor plan of what's going on here, and then show you some automated scanning features, show you kind of what's going on with this, and then we'll wrap this up so that you guys don't get too bored. So one thing that happens is, and I'll show you, when you first go into the viewfinder, what's going to happen is you'll see what I'm seeing right now. What you're seeing though on the wall behind me, or in the crosshairs, you don't see a laser point, but the camera's going to move around and you'll see what you actually see in real life. You actually do see that red point on the wall, and what's happening is in the viewfinder, it's turning off the red point. It's like filtering it out so it doesn't screw you up. But yeah, in real life you do see it. So I'm going to take the first measurement, and notice down here there's no icon or anything on it, just a normal thing. So when I take the first measurement, what's going to happen is we'll jump back to this, three-dimensional view of everything, and okay, everything looks great, everything's happy, we can rotate it, life is good. Gets annoying if you want to keep going, keep taking measurements. So if you select it once and select it again, it's going to give you a lock here, and then we'll be able to keep taking measurements. So that's what I want to do. So again, I'm going to just kind of move around. Now, if you select and hold, or with the view screen, what you can do is you can pick a point. So if you can see my mouse, I'm going to pick this point, and the view screen will go to it, or the crosshair will go to it. Or you can click and hold in the middle, and a red dot will appear. And then as you move around, you'll see an arrow that appears, and the farther you go away from the crosshair, the faster it goes. That'll help you dial in where exactly you want to go. The beauty of the 3D Disto, that is pretty awesome is you are able to remote control this with a tablet that is Wi-Fi. So instead of being, I'm 20 feet away from this corner, in real life what I would be doing is I would be going 2 inches or 3 inches from where this corner is away, and you can really dial in where you want that point to be. So for time's sake and speed's sake, I'm going to be kind of clicking through this pretty quickly, but you'll see in the webcam, you can see where that point is, and I'm going to take the shot and start working my way around this room. Now, after I do a couple of these, I'll pull out and show you the 3D of what's going on. But down in my office, I have a like a little bit of a ceiling bump, so I always like to take that into account as long as I can see it. So this is kind of where the ceiling bump starts. You can see that's showing me the point, and then I'm going to come over here and continue it. And I'm going to jump out of here and just show you. So again, for speed's sake, I'm just kind of like dialing in quickly. In real life, I'd be going a little bit slower than this. So I'm going to jump out of here and just show you what's going on. So you can see the first measurement I took was from this theoretical 0 point, and then that's the first corner. If we were to look at this, that's this corner, and then this corner, and then we're coming around. And you can see there's a little step up that we did. And now I'm going to be coming around this back wall here as we continue. I'm going to lock it and then start going. And I can zoom in. And right here, I always use this feature that I don't really know what else it's for, but you can kind of maybe differentiate that corner a little bit better, or maybe not. I don't know. Again, so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to take, there's another same step as over here, so I'm just going to go as far as I can go. Take that measurement. Now I'm doing a ceiling because I can see it. I would take some points on the floor, but then I would have to move a whole bunch of stuff. So just to get the basic perimeter of this room, using the ceiling is actually the best way to do it. And last thing I'm doing is I'm kind of like there's a doorway here, so I'm going to take a point here and a couple of points along there. So we'll hit that corner. Oops, this one. And if I want to remember what this corner was and remember that that's point 11, let's take a picture of that. Picture has been taken. And then lastly, we'll hit this corner here. Again, going very quickly. Just more interested in showing you that this thing can do the job. All right, so now if I jump out of here, we'll kind of get an idea is that you would basically just going right around the ceiling. If for some reason, you're having trouble visualizing here, you can always go to the top view. It still does the angle thing. Version 3 did this too, and it's like got everything at like a 25-degree angle, which is just a weird kind of way the software is doing it. But it's okay. You can still utilize the CAD from it. So one thing that you could do in the previous version, and you can still do here, is you can edit the lines that are in between everything. But one thing that I've noticed is you can't, like right now, I'm still stuck in this mode where the one that's highlighted below. And if I want to edit the lines, what you got to do is you actually got to select out of that mode, out of these two modes, and then you're able to select the lines like we were before. And I actually want to delete this one because it really doesn't serve a purpose for me. So we'll delete that line. And if for some reason we deleted the wrong line, what's nice about this software is you can still drag and drop a line and connect those two lines together. So we can go back and orbit this and you'll see these are all the points along the ceiling of which which I just dimensioned. And now I'm going to take a couple more of the door that's right here. So we'll just jump out of there and go back to the view screen. I kind of think of the view screen almost independently of this. This is kind of like, oh, here's your results, and then this is kind of like where I want to work. Before, you'd have to like elevate the different walls that you want to see, but now it's kind of nice. You can just visualize it. So I want to actually turn the line that's happening between the points. I'm going to turn that off for a second so I can locate this doorway. And I'm really going to just only select that without locking it so that I can get a visual on the store. Let's zoom out and see where I am at. Too far. So here's a door that I want to locate. Just kind of a opening of it. I'm going to go to the outside of the trim here. I'm still getting used to this new software. I would have been in just the right spot with version 3, and now I just overshot myself quite a bit here. It's kind of nice though, once you get the hang of it, it really saves a lot of time. So I'm going to just locate this part of the trim. And notice I did not lock it because I want to take the measurement, show that point 14, and now I want to draw the line of the trim. So you kind of have to think about what you're taking and the measurements that you're taking with that in mind for how you want it to be drawn in AutoCAD. And again, you can edit everything after the fact if you do make a mistake, so it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to take this point, and Ryan's going to follow me around with the camera. And now I've locked it, so it's going to stay right with us. I'm going to take this point here, again, going quickly for speed. If I was concerned with the accuracy of this measurement, I would be right close to it with my tablet, and the disto could be 30 feet away if I'm connected wirelessly, and you can just dial right into what you need it to be. Here's the last point of the door. We'll take that measurement, and then we'll jump out of here, and you can see now we've kind of located the door. We'll orbit this guy. So you can see there's the door. And now over here, there's this little check mark. And I've never used it before, but I think what it's going to do is it's going to complete this rectangle. So if I undo, yeah, so it just drew a line between those 2 points because we don't really, before you'd have to do that manually. Now with version 4, you can actually connect that. So there's the door opening. Now that I've kind of shown you the basics there, I'm going to show you what an automated scan looks like. So at any point during this whole thing, we can come out to this basic measurement screen and click this automation. So everything I've taken so far has been manually me finding the point, taking the measurement, moving on. But now I want to do an automated scan of a curved wall or a countertop or something like that. And I'm going to select the automated scan icon, which is the one just below the benchmark, and it's going to give me a couple different options. Same options as it was before, different icon. We can do a linear scan, which is basically going to be scanning along a line, or we can do like a gridwork scan. The gridwork scan is kind of nice if you wanted to check to make sure a wall was like not going in and out or something of that effect. Most of the scans that I do when I'm in the field for like countertop templating or just to kind of get a basic reference of a wall are going to be these linear scans, and that's what I'm going to show you. When you select the linear scan, it's going to ask you 3 different options or give you 3 different options. You can do it you can do it horizontal, vertical, or you can do a slope. If you do the horizontal, the first point that you take, it's going to be completely level from that point on, from that point. So if that point was 30 inches off the floor and your floor was completely level, every point that it takes consecutively after that is going to be 30 inches off that level floor. If your floor is not level, and say it was 30 inches at that point, it's going to continue as if that line was level all the way around. It's kind of nice. Same with the vertical, it's going to keep you plumb. With the vertical option, it does give you a couple of different points. Oops, I actually did not want to do that. Jump out of this view screen. And if you do something like that and you didn't want to do it, it's locked right now. If I select it, it'll say you want to cancel the auto scan. Just say yes, start over again. I was going to say with the vertical, it'll give you the option if you want it to be perpendicular from the wall or at an angle. But it's kind of something to know. I want to do a horizontal scan right now. It's going to ask me, this is a help text again. It asks me want to do the start point. Once the help text is gone, if you turn it off, down here is kind of like a status of what's going on. And you can see right now it's giving us the icon to select the first point. That won't ever go away. So if you have that help text turned off, you can see where you're at. It also tells you where you are in terms of the zoom and like the couple of the last measurements that you've taken. So I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to actually rotate the unit. Other angle, 180 degrees. No, that's going to be 100. Let me do like 270 degrees. I think I might overshot that one. Hey, that was a pretty good guess. So we set up a cardboard piece over here, and I have a tight office here. So, and this cardboard piece is kind of curved like a wall would be. So what I'm going to do is basically select a point on here as our start point. And then it asks you, do you want to go to the right of that point? Do you want to go to the left of that? Or sorry, to the left of that point, to the right of that point, or in between 2 points? I'm going to just say, let's go to the right, right of that point. Now, it's going to ask you the spacing. Do you want to go 2 inches? Do you want to go 4 inches, 12 inches? You can do custom. This is all stuff that's basically coming from version 3 as well. If you guys are looking at this for the first time, I'm going to keep 2 inches. And now it's going to just start scanning, and notice it's repositioning to keep itself level every 2 inches. Up at the top here, it's giving us a play-by-play, basically, of how it's scanning. It's trying to keep it within that 2-inch restraint, but each one that it's taking is telling you it's a little bit under, a little bit over. Really doesn't matter as long as we can capture the wall. And then at any point I need to, I can pause this and change the scan interval to a different one. So if I wanted to make this 1 inch, I could make it 1 inch, and now it's going to redo it. Not redo it, but continue at 1 inch. If I want to skip for some reason, there's an obstacle in the way, I can hit the skip button and it'll skip to the next point. If I want to go back and pause it and change the interval to back to 2 inches, we can do that from here. So very, very easy to change and to do. If I want to pause it and cancel the rest, I can do that. I'm going to have it just keep going a little bit longer to recreate this this cardboard that we have. And we kind of set this up randomly every time, so we're not playing a video right now, it's actually doing it. So now if I'm done, say I've done the walls that I need to do, I'm just going to hit pause, and I want to say skip the rest. If you hit cancel scan, don't hit cancel scan because that's going to lose all your points that you've done already. But you can hit skip the rest, and then it'll say, do you want to edit? And we can see the scan right now. I'm going to say yes, I want to edit it because I want to show you the little help text that comes up. So if you're scanning around a wall and you've done corners and say you're 2-inch increments, and say the corner is, this point is 1 inch from the corner, this point is 1 inch from the corner, but you still got your 2 inches, it'll allow you to go back and edit that so that you can go and pick that corner point and it'll add to the scan. Because there's really no corners here, I'm just going to go back and say, hey, I wanted to take that last point, or say that's the corner of the wall or something like that. And we'll just take that point and see it. It's going to add it to the scan in a second. And I think it did. And then once I'm done with that, I'm just going to hit select, or I'm going to hit the checkbox. Okay, there it just added to the scan. And now there's our scan, and if we rotate this around, we can see it in space of where it's going. And I can actually zoom in on it if I really wanted to see to make sure, and then we can rotate it kind of in place to get an idea of that curvature. And we can also look at it from a top-down view and zoom in on that to get a to get the profile view of it. Now this is all stuff that you're going to do in AutoCAD as well, but it's kind of nice now that we have this capability. I mean, this is an awesome feature. I used to have to export it to AutoCAD Viewer to see to make sure everything was good. Now you really, I still suggest exporting it after you've done with a file, but you don't have to do it to visualize the file, which is kind of nice. So the only thing that I might do next is if I go back to, sorry, I'm thinking about something. Again, this is software is new to me too, so I have to play every now and then. So now when we're done with everything, I'm actually close this list. I'm going to just zoom to extent so you can see what we've done. We have the basic floor plan. We located that door. We did this auto scan. We're going to hit this home button, and we're going to hit save. This is how you're going to save the measurement. So we're going to save as. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this February 2016. Okay. And now, so we've created a folder just like you would in any other thing. And then I'm going to hit the check mark. Now that I'm in the folder, it's going to ask me for the file name. And we'll say this is February 2016 demo. And now, nothing really happened, but it saved the file. So now we can go to the file manager. And now there's a file we just saved, a folder we just saved, and there's a file we just saved. To export this to get the DXF files and DWG file, which is a new thing, we're going to select the file and we're going to hit this export button. Sorry, that's my phone bleeping in the background here. So now that we've done that, I'm just turning my phone on vibrate here. Now what I can do is I can minimize this software, minimize this guy, and I'm going to open up the data folder. And here we have our three different components. There's an export, which is what we're going to go in. Import, which is where we upload a file. License file and updates are for just that. So let's go into the export file, and we're going to find February, which is this one. And here's the one. Here's what we just exported. So something that's new and different with the version 4 software. Used to be 5 files that it used to export in whatever snapshots you took. Now it's 6. We have a CSV file, which is like an Excel of the XYZ coordinates. I will show you that over here. So here's just a bunch of XYZs. I would keep this file. It's a good backup file. If you have any issues or problems, usually we can send that off to Leica and they can recreate a DWG file from it. Now we have a new DWG file, which I'll show you. This initial DXF file without a 2D or a 3D posted to it is pretty worthless. I would suggest never opening it. Don't delete it, but just never open it. There's a TXT file, which again is like XYZ coordinates of what's going on. Probably something you're not going to use, for the average user, but it is available for somebody who wants to take it to the next level. And then we got a 2D DXF, which is very similar to the last version, and a 3D DXF. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up AutoCAD and just kind of give you the visual of what is going on. I can actually go over top of, sorry, my AutoCAD's taking a bit. I'm going to go over top of this and then just kind of drag and drop these. So the 3D DXF file is going to be just that. It's a 3D, and it's exactly what we were just looking at in the viewer. And if I just type in orbit, you can see it, and it gives you all the points and little X's and point placements and all that kind of thing. So that's the 3D version. The 2D version, it basically is a flat shot of the 3D version. So if I were to orbit it, everything's on the same plane. The beauty of this is for when you are, and I have a video all about this, when you are creating a template for a countertop, you can go into this 2D version, turn off these points here, grab this information, and we don't care about this, and you can join this together, and now you have a continuous polyline that you can assign a CNC router to. If these were not coplanar, all in like, up or down, plus or minus, and Z, you're going to have issues with that. You'd have to flatten this 3D to be able to do what I just did. So that's what the 2D version's for, really, to pull off these auto scanning information. And then lastly, we got the DXF, or the DWG file. And that would be my son in the background if anybody is hearing. This this DWG file is really just a different format of the 3D version DXF file, and it's really the same information. So you don't have to open a DXF. You can open up the DWG file. So either way, it doesn't really matter. It's the same information. You can pull from here. So, but from here, if we want to take dimensions, hey, what's the diagonal, which I did not measure, of the room, you can measure from point A to point B, and it's going to give it to us. Now, again, what I was saying in units, it has exported this as as inches. So the door is 80 inches. If you're trying to get feet out of it, you're going to have to scale this to the correct, you're going to have to down this by 12. And so on and so forth. But so we can measure the door, we can measure the distance between the trims, anything that we measure, the 3D Disto is capturing the XYZ coordinates of something in the real world and bringing it into CAD. So really the sky is the limit for what we can do here. The last thing I want to just go over real quick, and then I'll be done, is last thing too in this folder is the snapshots that I took are stored in here. And this one that I took, I didn't actually initially take any points, so it just has the crosshair. This one, I was at point 11. It's a great snapshot to tell me where exactly I was in the scan. Very handy when you're doing some more ornate things. So that's that in a nutshell, so the exports. So I'm going to get rid of that. I hit the wrong button. And pull up the software here. So that's the software in a nutshell and the exporting in a nutshell. I would suggest if you're doing any files that you're working with, as soon as you're done with them, I would suggest exporting them. It's a very good quick backup that you have. I would save it, I would export it before you move on to the next one. I've had times where I've saved over the file accidentally. If you don't have the export information, then you kind of have to start from scratch again. So if you do have that export information, it's kind of separate from this 3D Disto software, and you'll be able to have that again. So lastly, I want to just touch base on this relocation aspect of it, and then we'll be finishing out this webinar. And that's going to be under device. No, that's going to be under, I always get this screwed up, application location. There we go. I always think device because I want to relocate the device, but it's an application. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to secure the location. And this is a help text that comes up, and it's going to say measure 3 to 5 points. So these 3 to 5 points are going to be, and the key to this is it's going to be someplace that the disto, when you relocate it, is going to be able to hit those 3 to 5 points. So if I have the disto here and I measure a point, let's see if I can do this. So if I measure, say, a point right here and a point right here and a point right here, and then I move this disto, if I can do it, from here to here, it's not going to work because the disto cannot see this point and it cannot see this point. It might be able to see that point, but what you're going to want to do is you want to take 3 points that you can visually see from both areas of where you want to locate it. Unless you don't care about the relocating it and you just want to secure the location of the disto, that's really the thing that you got to think about, is being able to visualize these points. So I'm going to do that. So I'll click OK. It's going to ask me to do the first point. So I'm going to pick a point. Now I try and do a point that's not going to move. So I'll look around the room, and you do have these target plates that you get. Oops. You do have these target plates that do come with it. Problem with that is if you put a target plate on the wall and you take the point and you go and you save it for the next day and you come back and the painter has removed the target plate because now he wants to paint the wall, you're up the creek. But now, usually what I try to do is find like an electrical outlet, and these screws are the perfect size. This is something that you want to take your time on. And again, for speed, I'm gonna go a little bit slower. So now I've kind of centered that there, and again, I'd be close to it with my target, or with my tablet. We have the viewfinder telling us, or the status down here telling us that we are taking that shot. And take the first shot. And you'll see it's kind of going to pop up over here. Measure another secure point. Yes, minimum is 5, minimum is 3, so that it can triangulate itself. So I got that one. Notice I'm not really caring about whether or not it's which screw it is, and I'll show you that in a minute. So we'll do that one. And then I'm going to zoom around to one more point, zoom out, and zoom around to this door, and we'll find a point on this door that's good. How about right up here? I know that the trim's not going to move. You're going to want to pick a point that's, a pretty good definitive point that you can go back to. And again, as long as you can see it from both spots. So now I've picked 3 points, 1, 2, and 3. I don't want to measure any more. 3 is fine. And now I'm going to save the file because that's part of the file now. So now I can move the disto anywhere I want, really, as long as I can see it. A second here, I'm going to move the disto. So I'm actually going to turn the disto right off, I think, yeah. I just turn the disto off, and I'm going to move it a few feet. And then I'm going to make sure that it's still level, or as close to level as possible, which it is. And I'm going to turn the disto back on again. Now, so now when the disto turns on, it does a starting procedure, and it goes through and it levels itself, which is what it's doing right now. And I have to go back through. The file hasn't changed, so what I'm going to do is just go to Device, Connect, and I'm going to connect it via Wi-Fi. Once it's connected, it'll say that it's leveling. And after it's leveling, I'll show you the quick relocate, and then we'll be wrapping this thing up so that everybody can get back to work. It's a pretty awesome tool, and this software update just makes it even more user-friendly and very easy to tell exactly what's going on, where before we'd be looking at this plan view that's on my screen right now, and then you'd have to select the points and elevate it, and it just makes it a little bit harder to work with. So once this leveling has happened and is done, it'll turn off, and we're going to go back to applications, and we're going to go to location, and instead of secure location, we're going to hit relocate. And it's going to say, okay, this tolerance that comes up, you can change it, but it's not a tolerance of 1 inch. It's very kind of misleading. And I keep it set to the default, and you'll see why in a little bit. So now it's saying measure the three to 5 points that you measured before. So it's going to give us the list of it. Gives us a picture of each one that we took, which is very nice. And what's even nicer about it, so it automatically took the picture when we took the measurement, so we don't have to remember it. And then if you want, you can open that up a little bit bigger, and then you can see, okay, I took the top screw here. So we'll close, we'll say, let's do this one, We'll move this to where that was, which was there, and it was the top screw, and we'll zoom in, and we'll hit that first point. And now measure the next one. Now it's eliminated that picture. We can zoom in here. I took the bottom leftmost screw. So we'll hit OK. Zoom out just a little. Zoom in on this guy. Bottom leftmost screw centered. And this is where I was saying, I know it's hard to see, but I've done this just a few times. It's actually easier to see on your screen than mine. All right, so we'll hit that centered. And now I was going to say measure the next one. Now, where that tolerance came into play, this is why it's kind of nice. So this is the last one. We're going to zoom in. Okay, we were right there. And I'm going to hit OK. The disto has moved to where it thinks that point is. And then we have to refine it. So it's saying, oh, if the point's here, then refine it to there, and the accuracy is going to be greatly increased. And it's actually pretty much spot on. So we can tweak this and move this however we need to get that point to be right there, and it looks fine. And I'm going to hit OK. And it's going to tell us, no, we don't want to measure any more secure points. The disto has moved 12 inches and 16th of an inch in height. Now we can keep going in this file like we didn't even stop. Nice thing is we can also save it if we were doing a job and it was taking too long. We had to stop and tear down and go back. We don't have to leave the disto there. We can take it with us. Now I can keep measuring like I didn't even stop, and the disto knows right where it's going. Another cool thing that you can do is if at any point you say, oh, I hope I didn't bump the device, or there was an issue with the device, you can hit check location now that we have secured the location, and I can say I want the disto to go to that location, and the disto will automatically move to that location. And when I go to the view screen, it should be right where it's supposed to be, and it is. So it's kind of a nice way to check it. So once you're done with this, you can save the file. The cool thing is when you're using the software, if you were to close it, even if it wasn't saved, you can open it back up again, and it's whatever the last one is that you were using will be the one that comes up. So that's the 3D Disto in a nutshell with the version 4 software. Again, we have some other videos to show some other things, but that's pretty much this one in a nutshell. If you have any questions or comments, Ryan's going to answer them now, and then or you can email them or call us, and we'll be happy to help you through anything. We offer support for the 3D Disto. I have a drafting and design business, and I actually go out and use the 3D Disto in the field. So it's not just me trying to sell it to you. I actually have used it in the field. I know what's going on. I know how to use it. So please feel free to ask us any questions, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again. All right.